Okay. I double checked everything. We're good to go. I actually feel very prepared for this episode. I have a lot of choice words, to say the least. Both good and bad, but I think it was like, personally, this is a lot more enjoyable than I thought it'd be, because I was very much dreading having to read this book because of all the horror stories that I've heard about it. I'm like, man, is it really that bad? And sort of. It's not 100% bad, but it is a lot. But yeah, let's go ahead and kick things off. Hello, everyone. I am Amelia, Queen Llama, here to welcome you guys to the 5th episode of the Themysciran Agenda, a monthly talk show dedicated to all things Wonder Woman. Before I jump in, as always, I will go over the episode format. Always a side note, I'm open to suggestions, and I know that I owe you guys a written summary of episode 4, and I will owe you guys a written summary of episode 5. This episode, I'll be analyzing Wonder Woman War of the Gods by George Perez, Russell Braun, Cynthia Martin, and Jill Thompson, along with various artists' letters and colors, who I will list in the sources in like the summary as well. But it's a big crowd. Those are just like the main names. I will look at the plot, general overview, its significance in the Wonder Woman lore, and give my criticisms and opinions about the story, and a little bit about George Perez as a writer, because I feel like a lot of it plays into my feelings for this book. I'm not focusing on any of the tie-ins, because there was a lot of tie-ins that I just don't care about, and I don't want to have to track them down. So I focused on the War of the Gods book itself, which I have here in case I need to reference it. It's a massive book. It's over 250 pages. So yeah, it was a lot. And then I also read a couple issues beforehand, so I can set kind of align myself in like the lead up to War of the Gods, which is pretty much you just read 50 through 57 and it leads all the way up into the start of War of the Gods. So yeah, before I begin and jump in, does anyone have any kind of questions that they want to ask before we start everything? Hey Andrew, yes, I did indeed survive War of the Gods. It was not easy. There was times where I'm like, can I just skip to the end? But again, I'll talk about that more. Yes, I survived, and I came out not hating it as much as I thought I would, but not liking it as much as I hoped I would. To summarize it all together. So yeah, it was interesting. To kind of explain my feelings for it, I think it's... Oh, so you're the jerk that wanted me to suffer. I see how it is. Okay. I'll remember that. It actually was a good idea. It's a good there's a lot to talk about. So I think it worked out in the end, even if it was like pulling teeth reading it. So, no, you did not vote twice. You guys are the worst. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. I love it. I don't totally hate you guys, but I also don't trust you anymore. No, I'm just joking. So let's jump into the summary because I feel like I'm very serious, okay? First of all, super serious. Super serial. I feel like in order for me to properly explain all my feelings for this book, I should explain the summary of this book. So that way you guys understand kind of where I'm coming from. War of the Gods follows Diana and the Amazons as they face a cosmic war among the gods of various pantheons. Each pantheon wants to recreate the world in their own image, and the heroes of Earth must band together to stop them. Meanwhile, Diana tries to uncover who's behind the various murders pinned on her people and whether or not her mother is alive. It all culminates into a final battle against Circe, an evil sorceress who has been pulling the strings all along. The winner in this fated duel will determine the fate of reality. That is the nice way to explain it. To break this down further, this is War of the Gods. Circe and Diana's fates are intertwined as potential successors to Hecate's soul. Side note, there's actually 3 ways to say Hecate. There is Hecate, which is the Greek version, Hecate, which is the Shakespearean version, and Hecate, which is the Anglo version. I learned that the other day. I didn't even realize. I didn't even know how to say Hecate's or Hecate, however you want to say it. I didn't even know how to say her name, but now I know how to say it 3 ways. It was I just could not believe that. Like, Hecate just sticks in your brain so well, and I hate Shakespeare for it. So yeah, Circe and Diana's fates are intertwined because they are both potential successors to Hecate's soul. Circe wants to destroy Diana and the Amazons, of course. The Bana Migdal desire revenge against the Amazons, so they seek Circe's aid. Circe pins a series of murders on the Amazons, who have just joined the international community, eroding the UN's faith in Themyscira. Meanwhile, Hippolyta goes missing, and Philippus is critically wounded. This is kind of the first arc within the arc, the first portion of the story. And that pretty much is like the first act, and then you get to the middle act, which kind of goes into more details of how all of this came to be. Circe, with the help of Cheetah and Dr. Psycho, begins collecting artifacts for her doomsday ritual that she learned from Hecate. And this all culminates into a giant spell to trick the gods of various pantheons into an all-out war. So it starts with the beginning of the war, and then slowly over the course they explain how the war came to be. The winner, of course, gets to remake the world. Towards the 3rd act, Circe actually kills Diana. Diana is returned to her clay form. But of course, she doesn't stay dead for long. Through some process of the fact that Hephaestus fires are still going, they're able to basically remake Diana out of the clay again, and she comes back. Donna is also here, by the way, and she's been trapped in like this weird time loop thing where she like experiences excruciating pain forever and ever, and all the Titans are trying to find her, and they're like, where's Donna? We have to find her. So that's happening. She is able to break free because while all this is going on, all the magic users in the DC universe are doing some kind of ritual to stop Circe and free Donna and bring back Diana, and then all of Shazam's gods are trying to bring him back and give Billy back the power of Shazam, and also kill Black Adam along the way. Anyways, all of these moving... Kill all men. I mean, that is Cersei's plan. Cersei, by the way, does not fuck around. She has one of her servants or whatever, manservants. She turns him into a chicken and then eats the chicken. So, like, Cersei doesn't play around. Okay, that's cool. But so that's like a side note of what Cersei's up to besides all her spells. Cersei does not fuck around. That's cool. Aquaman's pretty actually Aquaman is in this one too. Everyone is in this one. Aquaman has to fight, oh god, okay. Has to fight a giant sea monster. Let me find the picture here. Where is it's a giant sea monster. Let's see if I can find the giant sea monster. Oh, here we go. That thing. Yeah, oh, what was his name? Like I said, there was a lot of people in this one. Oh, Tiamat. I should have. Yeah, that's Tiamat, and the only reason I was like, oh, that's a D&D god. Or I remember it from like one of the D&D's, my D&D ratings for some reason. But yeah, so yeah, Aquaman, like I said, like a couple of the DC heroes are fighting gods. Yes, Rise of Tiamat. Yeah, the rise of like in this one he's like a fucking sea monster. So Aquaman's fighting a giant sea monster. You have a Firebird and Firestorm fighting another god. So like all the superheroes are fighting gods while all this is going on. So Diana's resurrected. Going back to like the summary, Diana's resurrected. Donna breaks free. They have one final standoff against Cersei. After Cersei has killed Hermes, Harmonia, and a bunch of other gods, by the way. And they defeat Cersei, and then like Hecate's soul leaves Cersei's body, and Diana, and then tries to enter Diana, and Diana's like, no way, and takes her lasso and just like turns Hecate into a puff of smoke. So that's the end of that. But essentially Cersei loses because she fails to realize that Hecate wanted to destroy life itself, not necessarily create a new world. So if Cersei were to have succeeded, she would have essentially destroyed herself. They call it like it was like the Hellfire Weave, which was like this giant like spell that was supposed to basically destroy the entire universe. Oh, and then at the end, the US apologizes for almost dropping bombs on Themyscira, because they would 100% apologize for something like that. Apologize. It's essentially like, we're sorry we almost killed your entire people. It's fine. Which I guess is kind of true to form, and how I imagine a US apology up for bombing someone would look like. So yeah, that is what I had to read. You know, explaining it like this, it sounds a lot easier to understand, but when you're reading it, it's just like, why are all these people here? I don't really care about this battle that's going on, what's happening with Wonder Woman. It was a mess. So, before I jump into like my general review of everything, does anyone have any questions about the summary of War of the Gods? I understand it is very confusing, but what you do need to know: giant battle of the gods, Cersei's pulling the strings, and Diana's trying to stop her. That's really the core of the conflict. you can mention that, or I can mention that, Diana was struggling with her need to ask people for help and how she just wanted to do everything herself. And everyone's like, no, Diana, this is kind of like universe ending stuff. We're going to help you. So I guess even Diana has her Batman moments where she's like, only I can do it. And I must be the hero to save the world. So it was interesting. And there was actually a lot of, like, in that I really did enjoy it. So I can look it up, honestly. Like right now, I can just I wouldn't know off the top of my head, so I need to look at it, but there was actually 25 tie-ins. I can list a few of them, but I mean basically the issue that happened was that this crossover was happening the same time as was about to happen at the same time as Armageddon 2001. So this caused last minute changes in who could be involved and to what degree. And then issues were added after the entire War of the Gods was released. It was really weird. Because things shipped out late. It was a massive hot mess. So of course there's Batman, Superman had tie-ins, Starman, Hawkworld, Legion of Superheroes, Dr. Fate, who actually had a pretty decent role in this book. I guess there's a Justice League of Europe. I did not know that. There's actually 2 Hawkworld tie-ins. Animal Man, Captain Atom, Suicide Squad, The Demon, and New Teen Titans, as well as like Wonder Woman issues that were going alongside this one. So yeah. So altogether, the full War of the Gods is 25 parts, 25 issues. So, and the actual story itself, without some of the tie-ins they actually added to the trade, is only 4 issues. So yeah, that was a lot of stuff that I just wasn't interested in reading. I just wanted to get through like the main 4 issues and like anything that they included in the trade that really pertained to like understanding the story. Okay, so, moving on to just like a general review. I have like this weird love-hate relationship with War of the Gods. It's meant to be a Wonder Woman comic, and yet there's just a lot of filling because it is also an event comic. The core conflict between Cersei and Diana is super interesting, and I actually really enjoyed like that third art, or like that third act, because of like Cersei being found out, Diana going to stop Cersei, and the final battle, and Diana supposedly dying and coming back. It's true. Like, events are super expensive, and I just think events are a bad idea because, and I'll talk about this more, if this was just a Wonder Woman comic, like you read it as a trade here now, as confusing as this is, it's just a Wonder Woman comic, it works really well, all these moving parts aside. So, there's a finality to Cersei and Diana's rivalry and battle, and there's massive ramifications for Wonder Woman, but it's listed as a DC event, and there's just no line-wide change, which I think is true for just events in general, is that there's never this sense of finality for a lot of characters. The ending of War of the Gods has a direct impact on subsequent Wonder Woman runs, because for one, at the end of War of the Gods, Themyscira has been pulled out of its Themyscira actually existed in like a pocket universe, and it's been pulled out of this pocket universe and exposed to the outside world. So now the Themyscirans have to become a sovereign nation with the UN and work with the international community. They're no longer protected, and that's something that came out of War of the Gods. It's just really tough to get through all that because, like I said, there's just a lot of filling. You know, this was War of the Gods was meant to be over 50 issues of build-up and like a final confrontation, and it just really wasn't at times. It's honestly just a hot mess because there's all these characters that I just really don't care about. See you later, Andrew. Thanks for stopping by for a little bit. You'll get to hear all my frustrations on YouTube. Yeah, and not to mention there was actually legitimate grammar and editing errors in this book. Like, sometimes it was hard to tell which speech bubbles were even supposed to go to which character. You would think that'd be something that they'd catch in editing, but I guess not. I do know that Perez and DC Editorial were not on good terms by the time they started this event. It probably legitimately affected, like, the story and the quality of the work. I would say it's a must-read to see the conclusion to one of the more satisfying rivalries in comics between Cersei and Diana, but it's also not needed to understand later runs. Like, you could go pick up Greg Rucka's run or Phil Jimenez's run and still kind of understand the state that the world's in without having to read War of the Gods. I just feel that because I've read all the lead up to War of the Gods and all the lead up to what Cersei has been planning for over 50 issues, it's cool to see that come to fruition, as messy as it is. So, you know, there's a lot of implications, a lot of setup in this book. It's just not that great with its execution of these ideas and stuff. Aside from that, a small art aside, so to speak, War of the Gods is visually beautiful. It's honestly a masterpiece, and I'm generally not a fan of George Perez's art. And I know he didn't do a lot of the final finishes, but Cynthia Martin and Jill Thompson, I combined their names, do such a good job of matching George Perez's art style and finishing, you know, anything that he might have started in layouts and just making it their own, that I think is just very pleasing and very good to read. And to me, it's pretty rare to see a event comic that has kind of consistent art across all of its main stories, which I think is really nice to see. And Martin and Thompson especially work very well with Perez's writing and Perez's just general style and kind of artistic tendencies in the layouts. So, I mean, I know Perez did a lot of the layouts. He did some of the penciling, and Martin and Thompson did a lot of the finishing art. But I feel like they deserve a lot of credit for the work that they put into this book and making it very beautiful. And of course, there was a few instances where I wasn't too sure about the coloring, especially with regards to the Bana. They were women of color, and sometimes they had like gray skin, and it's like, were they in the shadows? They honestly look like Gerudos from Legend of Zelda. It just wasn't the best color choice, but everything else color-wise, very awesome. Within like the first few chapters or first few like pages, they showed one honestly one of my favorite like panels in comics. Like that doesn't even do it justice. Like, I should honestly bring it up, see if I can find it in online, which I honestly couldn't. But it was just such a stunning piece of just straight up art and beautiful colors of Harmonia and Son of Vulcan, who actually I even forgot to mention in the summary. Son of Vulcan is in this. I'm sure all of you totally know who Son of Vulcan is. no, you wouldn't know who Son of Vulcan is. It's like an old Golden Age hero that DC took, and George Perez brought him back to kind of play like an important role in this story. And it's literally like his first and last story that he's ever in, honestly. So that's my general review. It's visually, it's amazing. There's a lot of story. Necroed. Quite literally. Yeah. You know, it's a visual masterpiece. There's a good payoff in the end, and a lot of juicy implications for later stories that kind of like, it kind of puts all the pieces together for a lot of stuff I just didn't generally understand, or it's good to know the origins of like, oh, so this is why this is that way when Rutka is writing it, or when Phil Jimenez is writing it, or even when Gail Simone is writing it later down the line. So I think that as far as from a Wonder Woman standpoint, I think it's pretty important. It's hard to read. It's a lot of moving parts, and I think it's worth it just because I think Cersei is a very compelling villain, and it's kind of a must read if you're a Cersei fan, or if you just really want to read a lot of her stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, that's up to you if you want to read it. I don't blame you if you decide not to, because it's very hit or miss most of the time as you're reading it. So that is my general review. So yeah, that's generally how I feel about it. I'll have a little more criticisms and a little more explanation for a lot of things later down the line, but I feel like now I've been hinting at it enough. We should talk about lore significance. Just generally, how does this impact Wonder Woman comics? Before I jump to that, please feel free to ask questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability, even if we gotta look them up online. But yeah, George Perez wrote over 60 issues of Wonder Woman. Not that many writers get to do that for any character in comics in general. I don't always like his writing, but you can't understate the impact that he had on modern Wonder Woman comics. And War of the Gods sets up a lot for other writers that I think is kind of, it's unique because people actually take what he built up and use it in their stories. I feel like because I jumped in during New 52, there was this whole feeling with comics that you can't look at old stuff, you can't pull from that old stuff. You have to make completely like from a blank slate, and that wasn't the case with the writers who followed after George Perez. So it was interesting to see kind of like the origins of everything. So it's a big, War of the Gods is a big deal for Wonder Woman comics. The aftermath of Cersei's spell leaves Themyscira vulnerable to the outside world, and several key Wonder Woman characters dead. Hermes, Harmonia, Eris are all killed. Penelope, the Oracle, the first Oracle before they kind of added other Oracles, is killed by Cersei. Helen, a prominent Amazonian senator, is also killed by Cheetah. There are a few other characters that died that I do not remember by name, but they're not as important as these characters because these were characters that we saw frequently throughout George Perez's run as either Hermes was Hermes, I'm glad he died. He was a weirdo. And he was very creepy in the Wonder Woman comics. He was almost like grooming Diana constantly. And I was like, Hermes, you're not allowed within 300 feet of Diana ever again. Harmonia is really interesting because Harmonia is the daughter of Ares. and she, you know, kind of sees all these visions and tries to stop them. And she's also very pretty. And then Eris was working with Cersei and kind of undermining like her own father for her own power, because, you know, she's all about you know, revenge and discord and stuff like that. So, and then Penelope was trying to, I don't remember everyone's, like, what was everyone doing beforehand, but I mean, she basically kind of saves Themyscira when it's being attacked by like Cersei's like spirit bombs. And I say spirit bombs laughingly, but like really it's like these giant fireballs that were rushing to Themyscira to destroy it for good, and Penelope like manages to stop it. And then Helen was with Philippus, and they were basically on the hunt for these Amazonian killers who turned out to be the Bana Migdal. And she was about to uncover the plot and didn't quite get there because Cheetah kills her. So yes, Cheetah's in this. She's kind of like the narrator in the middle act, where she explains to Wonder Woman's deadbeat cop friend, who I hate, by the way, what is happening and why this is happening. She like does like narration from her own point of view, and it's pretty interesting. But it's also like, you really had to do this whole like second act where you just explain what happened in the first act and why all this is happening. So yeah, also I don't understand why Wonder Woman hangs out with all these greasy dudes. I wish she wouldn't, but I can't change her decisions. So death count aside, War of the Gods sets the stage for a long-running accepted canon and timeline. That canon is that the Amazons are no longer hidden from the world, and they have to essentially not necessarily assimilate, but participate in as a sovereign nation. This is explored in Phil Jimenez's run with Themyscira Down, and Greg Rucka especially goes into this whole what if Diana was an ambassador and a public figure and all that, which George Perez started even before War of the Gods. I think it's really fascinating to see how Themyscira would react to political situations and on an international scale if they were a part of the international community again. And I feel like none of that would have been possible without War of the Gods. So, you know, some people kind of like redo the whole Themyscira falling out of the sky thing and becoming part of like the international community, but you know, it happened here first, sort of thing. So if that was intentionally his purpose to set the stage for other writers, maybe it wasn't. You know, it kind of starts this whole like question that they try to answer in Wonder Woman comics: can Diana be a good diplomat and a superhero at the same time? You know, do we really want, if she was real, would we really want her representing the UN if she's out there also fighting villains, sort of thing? Because I mean, if she is a diplomat, then every action she takes as a hero has international consequences. So I really dig that a lot, especially in later runs. Not so much in Perez's run, but especially in Greg Rucka's run. But this is about War of the Gods. You know, as I said before, George Perez had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with Wonder Woman. He essentially rewrote our modern understanding of the character. You know, he set up the Bana Migdal, he set up the rivalries between Cersei, Diana, and Cheetah, and he set a good foundation, which I think gets stated a lot, but always for different stories, for like his first arc or like his Cheetah arc, and it's like really every arc he did had an impact, even if I don't necessarily like every arc he wrote, so to speak. So So yeah, I mean, you can think about it this way. It's like you have comics before George Perez and then you have comics after George Perez. It's like he's like the halfway mark between a lot of the old stuff and a lot of the modern stuff. And that's a pretty important position to be in. So yeah, it's a love-hate relationship with War of the Gods and George Perez's writing, because I know he's very important to Wonder Woman, but at the same time I don't always 100% like what he dished out. So yeah, before I move into like my overall, you know, now that we've gone over the lore significance and like everything that War of the Gods dished out, I wanted to discuss my kind of major criticisms as far as it goes as a story, as like a single trade, and then just my final personal opinions on the matter. But please feel free to ask any questions. If I'm flying through this, let me know. When it's only a single book, there's only so much you can talk about before you start repeating yourself, so I definitely don't want to keep doing that with you guys. So, War of the Gods suffers, like all event comics in my opinion, under the weight of its own publication. You know, you can't just be like, hey, I'm gonna write an entire DC Universe event without there being some things left behind. You know, there's just too many moving parts for every character to adequately get their story or their 15 minutes of fame, so to speak. And personally, I think all writers approach event comics the same. They choose one character that they really like, and then they're told they have to write about 20 different characters. And so you get this thing where it's like, oh, so this is kind of basically a Superman arc, but 13 other people are around and kind of written well, and I guess they're there, and I'm supposed to care about them, but I'm really here because I want to read about Superman. So I don't know if that's just like an editorial thing when it comes to events, or just a writer preference when it comes to events, but I feel like that's all, like every time I read an event comic, I'm like, well, I love Wonder Woman, but she's obviously not really an important character to this writer, so she's not written well. And I'm 100% referencing Flashpoint right now. I'm just like, I'm tired of like my favorite characters getting bad portrayals. But then you know, when I finally do get a Wonder Woman event comic, I'm like, it's okay. It's just really, it's too many, you know, you have too many pins to juggle, and you kind of feel sympathetic to event comic writers. Like, there's always going to be some weird decision or a bad decision by the writer or the editorial department that's just going to reverberate through the comic fandom, and they're just going to remember you. Oh yeah, you're the guy who did this. Which is why I don't think we should do event comics. I think we should just do scaled down events, maybe for 3 characters at the most. Like a Trinity event comic where it's about the Trinity. Flashpoint brought a lot of pain and suffering. Like 100%, I agree with you there. Just Mira and Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and I'm just like, who are these people and why are they in this story? Yeah, I will always, everyone always like jerks off to Flashpoint. I'm just like, no thank you. I wish it had never happened. What I don't understand is, like, how do we buy it every single time? Like personally, I don't buy event comics, and I don't really want to read event comics, but it's like, there are people out there going to collect the covers, and I'm just like, enough. You don't need this 100 variant cover of this one character that has one tie-in. I just stop giving DC and Marvel a reason to do event comics. You know, you do things well by focusing on the characters and focusing on the story, but it's like publications will do this for maybe like 10 minutes and then they're back on their bullshit again. Yes, I am calling you out for buying 10 wedding variants when nothing good came out of the wedding. DC hyped that shit up for no reason. You shouldn't. I understand why you bought the 10 variants. I know they were pretty. you're the target audience for variant covers. I understand, but it's just like overall benefit. I'm like, why did they even promote it? Nothing happened. It should have just been like another issue. But yeah, it's War of the Gods is just a convoluted affair. And it's just like really, it's just there was a lot of moments where like, this really need to be in there. Did Shazam really need to be in this one? I understand you like Shazam, George Perez, but did he really need to be in this comic? And honestly, it's just an inaccessible event comic. And, I mean, I feel like all event comics are inaccessible because it requires that you know enough about the universe to understand the story that's happening. Especially when you start to read like older events, like if I were to pick up Infinite Crisis, you know, or something like that, I feel like I should be able to pick up the trade or trades without having to do the tie-ins, without having to read what happened to the lead up and just kind of understand it. You know, I actually hadn't read the lead up to War of the Gods. I was just gonna read the trade and talk about it. But it's like, in order for me to really fully understand everything, I decided I felt like I had to go back and read issues 50 through 57 to get a general idea and a general understanding of why all this is happening. And again, ideally a reader should be able to pick up Wonder Woman War of the Gods and at least through, whether it's an author note or a little bubble that they put up that says like, this happened in issue 64 or something like that, they should just be able to generally understand the plot and find it believable and find it easy to follow. And War of the Gods is not that book. As much as I like a lot of the pieces that it sets up. And I know not every trade should hold up as a single story, because sometimes if you're picking up volume 2 in a 5-volume series, you know, you should have read, you know, volume 1. But it's like, a lot of people aren't going to go back and read 50 issues of Wonder Woman comics to get to War of the Gods. So I feel like something like this big should be able to hold up on its own. And as a Wonder Woman comic, if they just took out all the stuff that didn't matter, it would have been a lot better. So, okay. Oh my god, my headphones are gonna kill me. They're like strangling me slowly. There. Sorry, my headphone wire was like strangling me. So yeah, I mean, those are honestly my biggest criticisms, aside from like the legitimate spelling errors and lackluster like side plots. Like, if you're gonna have side plots, please make them interesting. I don't really care that Billy Batson loses his Shazam powers and the Shazam wizard has to help him get him back, and then Black Adam dies. Or Son of Vulcan. I feel really bad for Son of Vulcan because I didn't even know he was until War of the Gods. But I legitimately, like, why are you here, dude? You're just here to be like, I was right and I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm like, I don't care. Just goodbye. So I'm just like, please just give me Cersei versus Diana. Let Cersei eat more chicken men. Just let Cersei be Cersei without having to bring in everyone else. Just have Diana and Cersei fight on an island. It's fine. So yeah, those are really all my burning criticisms. I feel like I feel like that Perez is a good enough and solid writer that I don't have much to complain about story-wise, aside from, like, you know, these side plots that don't really matter, or like the general like flow of the story. I think it's more of just how inaccessible event comics tend to be that I think is the source of most of my frustration. Because personally, when it comes to Wonder Woman, every single trade should be something that someone can connect to. I would not recommend War of the Gods as, like, definitely not a first read, but definitely not something for someone who's read several issues, or, you know, for several trades of Wonder Woman. So. But yeah. So, as far as just my final, and I understand this episode probably isn't as long as others will be, but as far as my personal opinion goes, I feel like I've kind of overstated it at this point. But I mean, this War of the Gods perfectly just encapsulates how I feel about George Perez as a writer. And I know 100% a lot of this writing wasn't his fault, because DC was just not 100% on board with him. But it's super wordy. There's just a lot of text bubbles, and don't get me wrong, I like reading. I like when there's like a lot of good dialogue, but he's just unnecessarily wordy. What takes like someone 2 pages to say, he's spending 6 pages to get to. You know, and it's not like he doesn't write things that I don't like. He has 100%, he uses 100% of like the tropes and the story elements that I love. You know, there's a grand final battle with 2 characters that we've seen multiple times and we are invested in. There's people that we have gotten to know, and side characters that we've gotten to know that are dying, permanently dying, that we don't ever really see again in other comics. You know, and we see Diana rise to fight, you know, what is to be her final battle. War of the Gods, if it was just the 3rd act, would 100% succeed. You know, all the main heroes come together for one final gambit, risking their lives for Diana before she's resurrected. They're like doing this for her, and I think that's very inspiring. You know, like you even see Batman, he's like, well, he doesn't say it, but he's like, he's doing this for Diana. And like all the Justice League and all the various Justice Leagues are like, we're gonna do this for Wonder Woman. And I think that is something only, I feel like only Superman and only Wonder Woman could ever inspire superheroes that much to fight for humanity and fight for their lives. And then of course when Diana comes back, there's that final standoff, you know, Western style standoff between Cersei and Diana and Donna, because she's there again. I don't know why, but she's there. And you know, you like really see what makes Wonder Woman so great is that like she succeeds, she beats Cersei because, you know, Cersei's only concerned with standing on top. Diana's always concerned with standing with others. And I feel like that's always something I look forward to in like these big fights, you know, is that Diana, even if she doesn't initially realize it, she realizes she does need other people help, and she wants to fight for others and fight alongside others. It's just so frustrating that it took 200 pages to get to that one moment. You know, the payoff was great, the journey not so much. And I feel like every time I read George Perez's stuff, that's how I feel. It's like, this is 2 pages more than I needed to read. And maybe I'm just so used to modern comics that are only 22 pages and very snappy and very like, your payoffs at the end of every page, and I don't necessarily need the end of every issue to be like a cliffhanger or to like set up the next one. It's okay to spend a couple issues to set something up. It's just you don't need to be so wordy about it. So many, like, I was just like, I don't care about this dialogue half the time, and if I can't care about the dialogue, how am I supposed to read your comic? But yeah, that's my final opinion. It's like, I'm frustrated it didn't meet its full potential, basically. That's how I feel. So, you know, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say about War of the Gods. Like this kind of just like almost blue ball. It's like being blue balled in a Wonder Woman comic. I'm like, damn it, it just didn't have enough. To put it mildly. It was just like, oh, okay, it ended. I wish it had more. So hopefully I'll have a story that I'm more positive about and can like 100% recommend to y'all. I just was like, oh man, this is really good. I just have to say what it is. It is a convoluted story, and that is what you're getting. And there's parts that you can pick out that you really enjoy, but ultimately you're going to be left a little bit confused and a little bit sad, mostly because this was supposed to be Perez's send-off, and I do feel that he didn't get to say everything that he wanted to say. And he has like even a written note, not really a written note, but he has like, he puts a note in the final chapter, like the final issue that he ever wrote, like saying, like thanking Diana for letting him write about her story. And I'm like, oh man, this is actually really sad. You know, did he leave off with DC Comics on good terms? Is he even on good terms with DC Comics at this point? So it felt really weird that at the very last, even after War of the Gods finished, there's like one issue after that that's like the final Perez issue. Everyone just kind of goes about their lives, and I don't understand why Event Comics do that. They're always like, well, we'll either reboot our universe or everyone's just fine. And I'm like, why do you guys do that? Like, maybe let the character stay dead for more than like an issue. So it's just like, oh man, all this great stuff happened, and now it's been undone. So at least some writers took from this and built off of it, but for the most part it was like, oh, reboot. And I don't think it should have just been a continuation of everything. So that is everything, officially everything that I wanted to say about War of the Gods. My sources were, of course, Wonder Woman, War of the Gods, written by George Perez, Russell Brunn, Jill Thompson, Cynthia Martin, and Romeo Tungle, Jean D'Angelo, and Nasi Houlihan were the colorists. Albert D. Guzman, John Costanza, and Richard Starkings were letterers. My other sources included Wonder Woman Volume 1, or no, not Volume 1, Volume 2, 50 through 56 by George Perez. To really understand War of the Gods, I would read 50 through 56, and then 57 through 62 would be like War of the Gods and all the Wonder Woman comics through Perez, and that would encapsulate War of the Gods. But yeah, that's everything I wanted to say. It was interesting to read, and I liked that I didn't 100% like it, because it gives me a lot of stuff to talk about. If I ever talk about Hikatea or Eyes of the Gorgon, I wouldn't probably have a lot of criticisms, to be honest, because those are perfect comics. But I enjoyed it in its imperfection. And I feel like sometimes those reads are just as worthwhile as the best story that you've ever read. So yeah. Does anyone have any final questions? Because this ends Themysciran Agenda episode 5. We have been going, well yeah, you guys have joined me for 5 episodes, 5 months. It's hard for me to believe that I've almost been doing this for half a year. I know it's once a month, but still, like, to consistently do this is a huge deal for me. So thank you guys for keeping me company and asking questions. So yeah, I'm always open to suggestions and improvements. If you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at Llama Amelia. Feel free to ask me about Wonder Woman. But yeah, before I leave, if you haven't already and you have a Republican senator, please call them. Let them know that Brett Kavanaugh should not be nominated to the Supreme Court. I don't care if this is political. I'm saying it. I already called Ted Cruz and Cornyn, because they suck, first of all. And I look forward to voting for Beto. But anyway, I know this will date the video for sure. Maybe I'll edit it out when I post it to YouTube. But yeah. Anyway, they are the worst, okay? Like, the worst. There's no way to describe how awful Texas senators are right now. But yeah, this is my talk show, so I can be a little political from time to time. But yeah, I will see you guys in November, which I will... I'm getting ahead of myself. It's not even freaking October yet. I will see you guys in October. Oh my god. Let's see. Yeah, so it would be October 25th. Yeah, October 25th. It feels like I'm already in October because of work, but yeah. October 25th will be the 6th episode and the halfway to year mark for Themysciran Agenda, and I'll hopefully get episode 4 and 5 edited summary wise, get that posted, get the 5th episode up on YouTube, and I'll send out a Twitter poll to have you guys pick the next topic, unless I decide to specifically talk about a certain thing that I've been wanting to talk about. So, but yeah, I'll see you guys Sunday for just a general maybe Destiny stream or something like that. And I will see you guys October 25th for episode 6. See ya!